Hey, welcome. Welcome to More Talk with Amy. I am your host, Amy Moore. And we are going to have an exciting time with this podcast. This podcast will be focused on entrepreneurship. It will be focused on academics. We'll touch on statistics, of course. And then anything in between. It could be a personal problem. It could be a problem at school. It could be a whole bunch of things. Okay? And a little bit about myself. I am the owner of More Statistics Consulting, LLC. And I'm also the founder of More Statistics Consulting Foundation. So without further ado, let's go on to the show. So I'm pleased to announce our first guest. Our first guest for today is Dr. McCamey, a mentor, a leader, an educator. She has 20 years of nursing experience and over a decade as a board-certified acute care nursing practitioner. She currently serves as the Assistant Dean for the Clinical Practice and Relationships and Assistant Professor at Johns Hopkins School of Nursing, and practices as a Senior Advanced Practice Provider in Surgical Critical Care. She received her Bachelor's of Science in Nursing from the University of Virginia and both her Master's of Science in Acute Care Advanced Practice and Doctor of Nursing Practice from Georgetown University. She earned a Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in the Workplace certificate from University of South Florida and a Nonprofit Management Executive certificate from Georgetown University. She is also the founder, CEO, and president of the DNPs of Color, Inc., a 501c3 nonprofit national organization that builds communities for nurses of color through networking, mentorship, and advocacy to increase diversity in doctoral studies, clinical practice, and leadership. In this episode, we will try to touch on all of these accomplishments of Dr. McCamey. What a pleasure to have you.
I am so excited for this opportunity for us to have this conversation. I feel like the vision was written and now it's manifesting in your podcast. So I'm really excited.
We've been talking about this forever.
Yes.
About this forever. Yes. You know, I have so many questions to ask you.
Okay.
Girl. Okay. So currently you serve as the Assistant Dean for Clinical Practice, right? And Relationships, and Assistant Professor at Johns Hopkins University.
Yes.
School of Nursing. And currently you practice as a Senior Advanced Practice Provider. How did your education lead you to this moment where you are right now?
Well, the education, so I guess thinking back at the beginning of my journey, I knew I always wanted to take care of people. And I always had a knack for teaching and mentoring others. But I never knew that the path would collide and create where I am today. And so I just literally just blindly just followed my passions in wanting to care for critically ill patients and people. So that's where the nurse practitioner hat came from. And actually, the nurse practitioner hat was really encouraged by my great uncle, Uncle Mike, that was like, you need to be a nurse practitioner because the writing on the wall in healthcare is that nurse practitioners will start to gain more momentum and more reach because they can provide more accessible healthcare to the nation because of the physician shortages. And I'm like, what did this hubbub Uncle Mike speak? But he is right. And I'm glad that I listened, kicking and screaming, going back to school to get my master's, and then again, kicking and screaming to get my doctorate. And it's been a wonderful journey that has been validated every step of the way, from mentors to seeing others being inspired and feeling empowered to pursue their own path and journey that leads them to, gosh, wonderful opportunities. So it's been a fun ride, and one that's been filled with lots of faith and focus and fun.
Yeah, the kicking and screaming part I can relate to.
Yes.
Yeah. I always tell people, be careful what you say you don't want to do,
Okay.
because you will end up, you know,
Doing
I'm
it.
saying in terms of the education, going back to school, because
Absolutely.
I always say, I'm done with school. I don't want no more school. And then you end up right there in school.
Ma'am. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Let me tell you, I threw my statistics book in the garbage in undergrad.
See, look at you. And you all up in
Yeah.
statistics,
I was like,
wearing
I'll
it,
never see this
writing
again.
books.
Right. So, as someone who works with the DNP students, let me ask you something on a regular basis. You're working with them. What are some of the struggles that you see them facing? And what's your advice to overcome those struggles?
A lot of the students, they're juggling a lot between being adult learners, going back for a second career, second degree, third degree, and then also looking at the climate of healthcare and nursing of today, where we have, lots of reports of burnout and folks leaving the profession. Some are struggling with finding inspiration to, did I make the right decision to pursue this career? And so, what we do strategically is ensure that they're empowered to make their own niche, their own space, their own impact, and follow their passion, which led them to pursue nursing, and encourage them that, you're on the right path and things always work out. And the beauty of nursing is you can start off in one specialty and end up in another. And
Right.
the flexibility that this profession provides is unmatched. And so those are a lot of the conversations is keeping the inspiration to being committed to this profession, and empowering them that they'll create their own value once, they're done with their studies.
Right. Okay. Now, you founded an organization called the DNPs of Color, which is a 501c3 nonprofit. It's a national organization that builds community for nurses of color, okay, through networking and mentorship and advocacy to increase diversity. Okay, well, can you tell us what inspired you to create this organization?
Definitely. So DNPs of Color was literally from my experience being the only Black woman at the time in my doctoral program. And I created it selfishly because I never had the forethought or the vision that it would become what it is today. I just literally was like, I'm the only Black woman up in here, and I'm gonna need some community to help me understand like this experience that I come with my lived experience being a Black woman in America, pursuing higher education and being in a predominantly white institution and not necessarily having the support that I felt like I needed. And so I just created it. It started off as a Facebook group just to have that community of conversation, to network, to, validate, like, are y'all experiencing this? Because this don't seem right. And then, kind of doing checks and balances there, and then creating our own space to navigate, strategize, to be successful in this program. And as the group kind of continued to just bubble and organically grow, it just exponentially just blew up into this thing where people are like, I also am having these experiences, but I also see the value in me pursuing doctoral studies and the impact that I can make. But I need this space to be me, to get refueled, to get validated, to be encouraged, and also networks. Because once I get this paper, this diploma, I need to know how to be able to effectively use it and how can I leverage it to my advantage and also to advance nursing, because that's what, that's why I went back to get my doctorate. So it literally is just from a selfish thought of wanting a community, but never thought that it would have this tremendous impact on so many people nationwide. I mean, I say we're international because we've got some folks in Canada as well.
Oh, yeah. 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 How could students benefit from getting involved with the DOC? Are there any standout success stories that you would like to share?
There are multiple. I think that we just hosted our second annual conference. It was hybrid here in Baltimore.
Okay.
And the energy in that conference was phenomenal. It was indescribable, the inspiration and empowerment people felt just by being there. And a lot of people at the end of that conference said, this was literally the best conference that I've attended probably in my career. And they said that about our conference last year when we had it virtually. And I said, what makes it different?
Right.
They say to be in a room of people of color, people with melanin that have this level of scholarship, this level of leadership, this level of understanding, to be able to have like these scholarly conversations and then to garner inspiration for others that are doing multiple things and making an impact was just so profound for them. And that from the offerings that we had, the programming offerings resonated with them to where they were in their career, and also motivated them to want to do more and also to invest in this community.
Right.
Because one of the things, and I always quote this statistic that comes out of Campaign for Action, when you look at the terminal degrees, because there's essentially two terminal degree pathways in nursing. There's the PhD in nursing, which everyone knows what PhD is. And then there's the DNP in nursing practice. And so initially the thoughts were the PhD were the garners of the nursing science. These are the researchers. They're creating all like the standards and all this kind of stuff for nursing science. And then the DNP degree was conceptualized to be what they call the translator of the nursing science. So the scientists create the knowledge, and then we shape it and putting into clinical practice on how to take care of people, patients, population, systems. And so the data now shows that PhDs, they're about over 7,000 in practice to 50,000, over 50,000 of DNPs currently in nursing practice. And so with DNPs of color, it gives us that unique advantage or opportunity to support this growing body of professionals in nursing that don't necessarily have a particular professional group to be a part of, because a lot of the groups are predominantly white, older, women that have basically dominated the culture of what's being said, what's being taught, who's in the room, who's leading, who gets to sit at the table. And with the DNPs of Color conference, people felt like we all had a seat at the table. We all could create, we all could contribute the value, our opinions, our experiences, our knowledge, our successes, our failures, into this powerful network of professionals to inspire not only ourselves, but students. We actually had some students there that some of my Hopkins students came, and I think them seeing me in this different light from like Professor McCamey, the dean and professor at Hopkins, to seeing like, being the leader of this influential, impactful organization. And they were able just to instantly grab so many pearls and network with so many people and see so many sources of inspiration. Like, if you guys can do it, I can do it too. And so it really sparked a lot of fires in people from, seasoned professionals, early, mid-year professionals to students. It just across the board, it was so powerful.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Now you're also the co-creator and chair of the Doctor of Nursing Collaborative. Doctor of Nurses Collaborative. What is that?
So the Doctoral Nurses Collaborative, it's also a community that I created. I say nowadays when people are like, who are you? What do you do? And I'm like, well, when I look over my career, I literally find gaps in my world around me, and I create communities. And from those communities, it creates opportunities. So the Doctoral Nurses Collaborative is another example of that. When I graduated, I got my doctorate. You call me Dr. McCamey. I'm like, hey. And then I go back to clinical practice and they're like, and we need you to take this patient. And I'm like, but I'm a doctor now, recognize.
Right.
And it wasn't recognized. It's in some instances, it wasn't well received because there's a whole host of controversy around nurses having their doctorate, calling themselves doctor, but that's a whole nother podcast.
You've got to be kidding me.
Oh, yes.
You gotta be kidding me.
So I'm like, I got this terminal degree. I know that I can create so much value for this institution because I understand the systems, the policies, procedures. I have this deeper knowledge of how to navigate and look at the literature and the evidence and translate it into practice. I want to contribute. And so I found other doctorally prepared nurses, and I pitched this idea like, hey, why don't we create this council of nurses that have their doctorates and start really harnessing our collective scholarship to start advancing some of the clinical practice initiatives to close some of these gaps that we have in our system, in our respective entities within this health system. And so, again, another idea that just grew exponentially. Like once we put the structure in place, we advertised, we ended up getting, this was in a major health system that's here in the DMV, and we ended up getting like over 50 folks within the health system to be part of this group. And so we started writing grants. We started mentoring nurses that wanted to do nursing research. We started doing publications, presentations, and we really raised awareness of nurses with doctorates in the health system. And it was so shocking at how many people just didn't know that those two things could coexist. Because I think historically people look at doctors and look at medical doctors and don't really extend that a terminal degree, a doctorate, affords you to have the title, and it just signifies that you have the highest level of education in that particular specialty.
Right. Wow. That sounds, how do you have the energy for all of this? You have put so many things together.
I think that when you have purpose and passion, when those two kind of fuse together, it just puts you in the space that the things that you do that align with your purpose and passion, it's not work. It's just part of what you're supposed to do, and it's validating. It's filling. It's fulfilling. It's wonderful. So it doesn't look like work. But then when you read the bio, you're like, goodness gracious, what?
Yes. I mean, I knew you had a lot, but then I got really focused on it. I'm like, whoa, heavy.
Yes.
So in your personal experience, is there anyone that you could look back at who what had an impact on your life in terms of this journey that you're on right now? Is there any impact?
Oh man, there's so many, but I kind of look at my life in phases. Obviously, everyone says mom, not everyone, but for me, my mom was definitely my foundation rock, but that goes without saying for me. One person, there are a couple. The next person that comes to mind is my track coach, Coach Bill Stearns.
You ran track?
Girl, yes, I was out there. I was a hurdler and things like that.
Like, wait a minute. I was a hurdler.
Stop.
I didn't see you on the track next to me.
Girl, because I was busting my kneecap trying to get over them things.
Yeah. So was I. Yes. All
Yeah.
right.
So my track coach,
Okay.
I say to him to this day, he literally changed the trajectory of my life with just one conversation.
Really? What did he
Yeah.
say?
In a nutshell, I had always aspired to go to college, but I grew up in a single parent family household. We had, no money, which whatever, and I struggled academically with standardized tests and stuff. So some of those things kind of didn't put me in a competitive category, if you will, according to the professional student standards. So I went to my guidance counselor wanting guidance as to how I could make myself a more competitive candidate for college. And so she boxed me into all those statistics. She's like, statistics, because I'm Black, female, single parent family household, less than $40,000 a year, couldn't get over 1,000 on my SAT scores. My chances to getting into a university college type setting were like little to none, and that I should just go get a job at McDonald's. No disrespect to those that are in McDonald's, but I should look to starting a career versus looking to go to college.
The
And that
part I'm
crushed me.
reacting to is being told you shouldn't go to college. That's the part.
That part.
I had a similar experience.
Mhm.
Yes. Where
Which
someone
is
said that.
scary.
Yes.
Yeah. Just ripping
Yes.
dreams out of people's lives and but also leveraging the power that she had. You're the guidance counselor, like you're the
Right.
professional.
Right. 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 Right.
So, anyways, long story short, I believed that narrative and I began to box myself into those statistics because my mom created such an environment around me that I didn't realize we were poor. I'm like, oh, so us barbecuing in the backyard is because we didn't have gas because the gas was cut off. But I was like, we just barbecue all year round. She made the
Yeah.
impoverished conditions. She always
Yeah.
put a silver lining on it. So I didn't know any better. But
Okay.
when that guidance counselor put those those statistics down in black and white and was like the data shows and this shows and the numbers show and
Mm-hmm.
that's you. It was
Mm.
like, well, then I guess you're right. So I believe that. And
Mm.
so I went to track practice. I was crying. And my coach, he was like, no holds bar, like no crying on my track. We come here, we're focused. So I'm trying to, swallow the tears. And he's like, McCamey. And I'm like, yes, Coach Sir. He's like, get over here. He's like, why are you crying on my track? And I just lost it. So I shared the story with him and he was not pleased. So he was like, finish your drills, finish practice. He makes a beeline to the guidance counselor's office. And I just learned about this half of the story, that he went and basically gave her a piece of his mind. But before that, before he left the track, he gave me this perspective that my statistics that she boxed me in gave me an opportunity to get financial aid, so more grants versus loans because of like the financial whatever ratios. Like I qualified for so many different merit scholarships, and he was like, and you have over a 4.0, you can easily get an academic scholarship. He's like, I have no problem writing recommendations for you, and because you're below this social economic status, you get to apply for all these colleges for free. Like you don't have to do any application fees. So he gave me the secrets that the guidance counselor should have given me. And so when I took that information, I applied to like over 20 schools. I was like typing up my personal statements.
Right, right.
So I got into like all the 20 schools that I applied to. So I had a whole different problem at the end of that.
Oh, wow. Wow. Isn't that something? It only takes one person.
Okay.
So that was meant to happen.
That's why I'm so addicted to inspiring and mentoring others. Because I'm like, if there's literally one word that I can say to change the trajectory of your life, like I am willing to be that vessel to share my experiences, share my story, anything that can spark you to think something differently and make your own path according to your own passion and your own purpose, not by somebody else's standards or statistics. Sorry,
Right.
there's statistics more.
Oh, you don't. No, it's okay. It's okay. Mentioning statistics like that. But I have so many questions to ask you. But I just want to know, what kind of changes would you like to see happen within the nursing profession? What would you like to see?
Man. I mean, my life's works around diversifying the nursing profession.
Right.
There's so much literature and data that supports that just by a person of color, a nurse of color, a provider of color's presence in the room of patients that are of color literally saves their lives, not just standing there. And so, but we're grossly underrepresented in the nursing profession, in the healthcare space. So making space for folks like us to have the opportunity to be nurses, physicians, nurse practitioners, physician assistants. But that really calls for a dismantling of a lot of the structural racism that has been built up within nursing, from how nursing is predominantly white. So that governs the opportunities, who gets the opportunity, who gets to set the table, who gets to make the menu, who gets invited to the table, who gets to eat, who gets to watch people eat. And so we literally have to just do an overhaul of nursing as a profession. And that involves more inclusivity. And then looking at the non-traditional pathways for folks to use their lived experiences to count as valuable, to contribute, to be competitive in nursing programs and in nursing professional opportunities, because the way the professionalism standards are, they're baked in racism, they're baked in whiteness. And so me with my afro can't come in with it because it's looked as unprofessional. Like you have your fro, you got your braids popping, like we really need you to straighten that hair out because that's not professional. So we really need to look at
yes, the
some
hair.
of the standards.
I thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's across the board too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In other field. Yeah. Interesting. Well, what's next? What's next for you?
Oh my
Dr.
gosh.
McCamey?
Well, I just got here at Hopkins. I've been here, 6 months now. And it has been a very wonderful, interesting experience. I would say
great.
There's large, I don't say large, there's lots of conversations and literature that talks about the transition from being in clinical practice to academia, and kind of like that transition piece. So I'm in that weird transition piece of, used to being in hospital settings to now being in academic settings. So it takes it's a lot of information overload, and it's a whole culture change. It's a whole language change. It's a whole different way of being, but I love it because I get to be on the full circle side. I get to be the inspiration that I didn't have when I was in nursing school. And I know how important that is to see.
You should capture that, what you just said.
That looks like.
You should put that on a t-shirt somewhere.
Yes.
I'm serious. That was deep what you just said.
I'm trying, Amy. I'm trying. So it's awesome to be on that. And my first week here, I'm walking into school, I'm just trying to like focus and figure out how to get in my office. And a group of students noticed me, and they're like, "Oh my God, is that Dr. McCamey?" And I'm like, I can hear them because they're in earshot. And one of them comes taps me like, "Are you Dr. McCamey?" And they're like, "It's her." So they all come circling around me. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." They're like, "We're so happy that you're here. Like, we're so inspired that you're here." Child, I was in there like, just like thug tears, like, "Oh my God." And they're just like, it's just so amazing to see someone like you here and to be in a leadership position, because we know we can do it too. And I just was like, wow.
Mhm.
I've come
Yeah.
full circle.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be at Hopkins for a minute, making my space, making my waves, because I know the importance of me being here and occupying an administrative role as a dean here, one of the deans here. And it's important for me to be here. And so I'll be here. I'm gonna be up in here.
Well, I thank you for coming, and it's just been a pleasure hearing all of your experience and what you plan on doing in the future. It's great, it's just great. Inclusivity and diversity in nursing.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, Dr. McCamey, and we will probably see you again, hopefully.
Yes.
Hopefully.
Yes. This was a wonderful opportunity.
Thank you.
I like to be educated, but I'm so frustrated.
More talk with Amy. More talk with Amy.